Welcome to Freedom Talk Radio.
Brought to you by Phil from Michigan and Andy from Grimsby. Freedom Talk Radio on Twitter, Facebook, phone, online or email.
Don't forget to check out our social media site, ussamichigan.com. That's ussamichigan.com.
You're listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
Till the pain is so big you feel nothing at all.
Freedom Talk Radio is inviting whistleblowers to come and tell about crimes they've witnessed against their families, their friends, their children. Freedom Talk Radio 2013 at gmail.com 01444 390 270. We want to hear from you. Come as guests, hosts, volunteers.
freedomtalkradio.co.uk.
Let's go!
This is the most diverse, most amazing, one of the funniest radio stations you could ever listen to on the internet. I've heard so much stuff from the ups, the downs, the left, the right.
The politics, the non-politics, the schmolitics, whatever you want to call them.
It's great.
Yeah, hello, welcome to Saturday. It's 8 p.m. in London and it's 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 12 midday Pacific, and you're listening to the Kevin and Annett Free Radio Kanata show with your host today is Andy Peacher. We've got Nilu on the line. A very special guest, as always, is the main man himself, Kevin Annett. And we're joined a little bit later on with Patrick Cullinane. Now, today we talk with Patrick and Kevin on the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta. And Patrick's got a live event in London, which we'll explain later on. And as Lord Denham would put it, Magna Carta was the greatest constitutional document of all time, the foundation of the freedom of the individual against the arbitrary authority of the despot. And there's a good article in the Telegraph about the Magna Carta anniversary as well. And its headline, "Finally We Mark the Spot Where Freedom Was Born." Reverend Kevin Annett has been on the satanic ritual trail with the Vatican and the monarchy since becoming a whistleblower for North Americans who lost many children to satanic ritual abuse, genocide, human trafficking. He has also set up the ITCS.org and the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and the State. You can find his bio at ITCS.org. Yeah, welcome again, Kevin. It's always lovely to see you on a Saturday, and I'm not just sort of saying this, but the figures really do blow out the roof when you come on, and I think it's a sign that we must be saying the right stuff, and the right people are absolutely listening. So, Magna Carta today, then, my friend.
Absolutely, and it's June 15th, of course, 800 years since the signing of the first Magna Carta. There were several of them. But I also wanted to, since you mentioned about the response to the work we're doing, it's really good to be on every week with you folks. I'm glad we have this regular medium. And our program, Radio Free Kanata, that we do every Sunday at 11 p.m. GMT, it's actually gone in the last 3 months. We've gone from 90 listeners to 800 in 3 months. And that's the biggest jump I've ever experienced on any kind of blog radio system that I've done. I've done 3 others of them in the past. So I think that's a sign of the times that people are wanting to do more than document the crimes. They want to take action to reclaim the earth and the law and everything. So this is, another example of that building wave, that I'm seeing everywhere.
Yeah, well, somebody said to me today, Andy, do you know why my show is getting a lot of hits on my website? And I said, well, yeah, very simply. I've got a 24-hour stream on freedomtalkradio.co.uk, and while I'm on that subject, freedomtalkradio.co.uk, you can go to the chat room now. It's open. I forgot about that. freedomtalkradio.co.uk/chat, and you can probably ask Kevin or Patrick any questions within the chat room. There is a password system there. You just put in what you think. You can put what you're thinking, and it definitely will open. I'm going to be there in a minute. So, yeah, the reason these shows are coming up, I'm playing all the Radio Free Kanata shows from the beginning at random. Apologise for that, my wife's coughing. At random on the stream, which The actual stream goes to TuneIn Radio, which, if anybody's not familiar, if you've got a cell phone, mobile phone app, you download TuneIn Radio app, do a search for Freedom Talk Radio, and listen to us on the move. We're also on iTunes. I've just won a massive argument with Microsoft, and we're now on Windows Radio Media Player, which virtually goes out to anyone and everyone. I just had to, I don't think it's live yet. We had to sign a license the other day, just to say you can't swear, but I mean, and you can't play other people's music. But apart from that, it's all normal. So yeah, we are a hub. We're still a new hub. We've only been here a few months doing it properly. It was just me and 3 or 4 others. We're now up to 17 show hosts, or at least 17 programs a week on various subjects. Most of them are social care or family rights, but we are growing, and we're going to stay growing, because not only have we got our live shows on blogtalkradio.com, we've got them on Spreaker, and we've obviously, like I said, we've got them on the live 24-hour stream. And all it would take is someone to ring me up, need to do a show, right, stop the live stream, go live, no problem. And that's how it works. So yeah, sorry, Kevin. I just thought the information of letting you know that we're replaying all your shows may be a reason why other people are listening. But what we're trying to do also on Facebook, we've got a website called Internet Radio Stations Link Share. So we want stations that are small to share each other's links and visit each other's shows, so we can build it up into a global community of internet radio stations. I know people are doing it, but they're not doing it for the truth movement, which all of us are.
Well, I know, and these shows have a real impact. I continually get reports, not only in Canada, but in America and across Europe, of people who've heard the shows, and then they go and try to do something about it. For example, some folks in Vienna, Austria, have convened their own common law court after listening to our programs and studying the material and realizing that common law has universal jurisdiction. It isn't just a thing that came out of England and Magna Carta. It's because our sovereignty resides within each one of us. And, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven was within you. Well, so is the law, so is our natural being. It's not within an institution. And so any of us can establish these courts, and these folks in Vienna are going ahead and doing that. So, it shows that we're not only planting seeds, but these seeds are beginning to sprout now, and that's really encouraging.
Well, my first question was, where did the Magna Carta came from? So we'll do it like that. We know it's Runnymede and all that, but yeah, first question would be, where did it come from?
Well, it actually was like any great thing. It was many years in the making. And the reason it happened just then, there was a political crisis going on between King John in England, because just about 7 years before Magna Carta, this Pope, and a lot of this politics, it always goes back to Rome, Pope Innocent III put all of England under what was called an interdict, because basically King John refused to accept his appointee, this guy called Stephen Langton, as Archbishop of Canterbury. So because King John didn't put in the Pope's man as Archbishop of Canterbury, the whole country was under interdict, which meant you couldn't perform services, you couldn't do baptisms or anything, you couldn't bury people in consecrated ground. Basically, the Pope tried to shut down the whole country. So in response, King John pledges fealty, which was this feudal oath that he took to the Pope. So all of England was put under papal jurisdiction. And apparently that was the case right up to the 14th century, although there's different disputes. Some people say it's still the case, that the Crown of England is kind of a subsidiary of Rome and the Pope. But, there's different evidence about that. But the important thing is that led to a lot of very disgruntled people in England, and especially the barons, who had their own independent power, and they didn't like to see the king being basically the puppet of the Pope. So there was a faction of barons that broke off. And this faction, in a nutshell, they're the ones who pushed Magna Carta. And because of John's precarious position, he had to go on and sign it. So that was kind of in a nutshell, the immediate stuff leading up to Magna Carta.
Yeah, why was there so many copies of it made then?
there was about 40 copies made, and only 4 survived. The 2 of them are in the British Library in London, and 2 of them are in abbeys in England somewhere, although one copy was called the Lincoln copy from Lincoln Cathedral. It's gone all over the world. During World War II, it was held in Fort Knox in America because they thought England might be occupied by the Nazis. So they moved Magna Carta to England, to America rather. But it's traveled around all over. It's gone to Australia, Canada. I mean, it's really the traveling copy of Magna Carta. But, like we said, there were originally 40 copies, but only 10% of them survived, which is not bad over 800 years.
Yeah, I believe the Magna Carta copies are in Canterbury, London, Runnymede, St Albans, and Bury St Edmunds. And like you said, the original copies are in Lincoln. They're also in Salisbury and the British Library. But when I was leaving Lincolnshire to move up to Scotland, there was a big event in Lincoln Cathedral about the return of the Magna Carta, which is one of the originals.
Well, I think people, often there's different attitudes to Magna Carta. The Pope he did in his law system, the Pope nullified Magna Carta the year it happened, because he didn't like the idea that rights could be bestowed by anybody but him. So the papacy's never liked this idea of people governing themselves. The king had this notion that he was bestowing a grant or rights on his subjects. But what some of the nobles, and this is the really significant part of Magna Carta, isn't that other stuff, but it's the very fact that some of the nobles said, no, Magna Carta is simply recognizing liberties that pre-existed. It's called in Latin ab initio. It's not initiated by man. They already exist. In the same way they say, well, God exists. They weren't, the divine wasn't created by us. So our liberties pre-exist us, and the Charter, Magna Carta, simply recognized those liberties and affirmed them under the law. They weren't granted to anyone. Now, that idea entered various, political systems over the years, including the Constitution in America. And the Founding Fathers had said these are unalienable liberties because they weren't given to us by anybody. They weren't granted by Parliament, like here in Canada, and this is why we set up the Republic. In Canada, there's a Charter of Rights. It's granted to people by Parliament, and it can be revoked at any time. That's the old Roman notion that the ruler gives you rights and then takes them away whenever he likes. But there's the tribal common law reality that is recognized in Magna Carta that says, no, they're just affirming things that are already there. So that's an important distinction, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're lucky enough to read or understand the Magna Carta, because I can't think of any other question at the moment because I've forgotten it, but this question would be, this is like fast forwarded too much, but how can we use the Magna Carta then to help us in law or lawful pursuits?
Well, there's aspects of Magna Carta that's very relevant. I mean, when people read through the translation, because it was done in Latin originally, of course, but if you read the translation, a lot of it has to do with like granting rights to this particular guy, granting fishing rights to somebody else, allowing free movement on the roads, which is a very important one actually. But here's a couple that are very relevant. Article 39, it says, no free man shall be taken, imprisoned, or disseised, or exiled, or in any way destroyed, nor will we go upon him or send upon him, except by the lawful judgment of his peers, or by the law of the land. So in other words, that was the first provision against arbitrary arrest. And the next one, very important, Article 40, to no one will we sell, to no one will we refuse or delay or deny right or justice. Very important one too. It basically says that no authority has the right to deny justice to the people. And, so those are, now how do we use those? They're continually used in court cases of arbitrary imprisonment, of these homeland security laws, of the laws in England, for example, that allow people to be put into psychiatric examination if they're considered to be fixated on a particular issue or person. These fixated threat centers in London, which are draconian. You can use these provisions in Magna Carta to say, look, these statutes that you brought in are, define our Magna Carta rights and are invalid. They're not they don't have validity under the law. They're just a statute that has no lawful weight. So anyway, Magna Carta has been used time and again, including by Supreme Courts in America and other places, to uphold those liberties.
Fantastic. Breaking news is 10 hours ago today, the Magna Carta celebrations begin already in London today on the River Thames. A replica of the Magna Carta is being carried down the Thames as part of events to mark its 800th anniversary. The royal barge Gloriana is leading 200 boats from Berkshire to Runnymede in Surrey over the 2 days of events. Oh, that's interesting. Patrick will be telling us later on about an event in London on Monday outside the Royal Courts of Justice. And so why do we have to go all the way back to years and years, when Magna Carta and common law was around? We have to go back centuries to get justice, because modern justice is just no good. It just doesn't work.
Well, common law, again, there's two different systems, two ways of looking at reality. And one is, either authority comes from us or it comes from somebody else given to us. And under the law, there's a doctrine called stare decisis, which means the decision stands. And that means that any precedent that happens, let's say a judge 200 years ago makes a ruling about something, you can use that as a lawful binding law, unless there's another precedent that, that's the flexibility and genius of the common law, is that it changes all the time and it adapts. It used to be a law in America that blacks and whites couldn't marry. And yet that was overturned by decisions in the Supreme Court and other places invoking Magna Carta. But I think it's important to know, too, something, a lot of the words we use, we have to know what they mean. For example, even the word legal, it comes from the root is the same root as the word religion. Legio, religion, law, legality. The term in Latin means to bind together. So religion is you're binding people together in this organization. It really doesn't have anything to do with God. It's about binding people together. But so is the Pope had these, and the Emperor before him, had these delegates who went around in their name. They carried like a little white baton, and they were called legates, imperial legates or papal legates. And they would come in as the authority, and they had absolute power to impose law on people, execute people, whatever. That's really the notion of legality. It means we're imposing this on you, and you don't really have any say in the matter. It's the law, now shut up. And that comes to that notion of legio in Latin. But against that, there's the notion of liberty or libertas, which basically means, you can have all the statutes and legality you want, but it doesn't impinge on me as a free soul. I have only one authority, and that's Creator. Whether you want to call it God, the natural law, our conscience, whatever, it cannot be constrained by legality. So, we're all brainwashed to think, something's the law, we have to obey it, we have to do what the cops tell us. No, we don't. It only has, and this was a very famous quote from Oliver Wendell Holmes, who is the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, and he said, statute law, which is legality, only has binding authority on its citizens if they consent. Okay, like the government's always leaving out that second part. It needs our consent. If we don't consent to something, it has no authority over us. And enough people saying no, and you have a different system. And that again goes back to Magna Carta that said, that faction of the nobles said, King John, you're not giving us anything. You're affirming under the law that which we already have. And so there's a different notion between legality and lawfulness, and I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, that sounds a good point. This might be interesting to you. Sort of a double question, really. No, it's not. One's a comment anyway, and then the next one's a question. David Cameron, last year, by the way, pledges even, lessons on Magna Carta in every school for every child as he seeks to push British values. Now, there's no point reading the article. I actually believe he hasn't even, without even reading it, I don't think he's actually introduced this to the schools. It would have been brilliant if he had, because I believe children are the ones, who they prosper very quickly with old historical stuff. The next question is, I noticed another article today. The Queen and the British royals are getting ready for the celebrations of the Magna Carta. I mean, I don't get the royal connection myself.
There isn't one.
Well, then I've got it right.
Well, I was going to say about David Cameron talking about Magna Carta. That wasn't during an election campaign by any chance, was it?
No, that was a year ago.
Oh, it was, okay. I mean, people love to trot out the rhetoric, but I mean, royalty, the notion of a monarch, whether it's in Rome or in London, a spiritual or secular monarch, is completely antagonistic to the common law, and really within the West, common law is really founded on the Bible, and in the Bible it says, which is really a set of laws. When you look at it, the Ten Commandments and so on, it's a set of moral precepts and laws that govern people. And in the Bible, it says God doesn't want sovereigns. God doesn't want monarchs. God knows of a people, not under other people, but just people that are equal with one another under the divine authority. So when the English Republic in 1649 put King Charles on trial as a tyrant, as a man who had conducted war against his own people outside the laws of Parliament, and they lawfully convicted him and executed him, when they established the Republic, they made it clear that they were doing that with divine sanction, that is, citing biblically the fact that monarchy has nothing to do with the rights of the people, and in fact is an imposition on those rights, and really should be abolished. And then, as a matter of fact, there were laws in England until 1660 that said it's an act of treason to declare somebody king or queen over somebody else, because that goes against the divine law. And so it was really, a very clear moral and spiritual basis for this notion of a common law republic. And so I really think that's important to talk about too, because people forget that, here's a quote from John Cook, who was the public prosecutor in the trial of King Charles I. It is clear both by Scripture and the laws of England that monarchs are anathema to divine law. Kings are man's creation, not God's, and therefore, like popes, they stand under judgment and the common law. Now, and that's important because that's the basis on which we actually put Queen Elizabeth and Pope Benedict on trial for crimes against humanity and crimes of genocide in Canada, and lawfully convicted them of those. There's a precedent to that, and it's not just Magna Carta, it's also those laws that the English Republic brought in the 1640s and 50s, which provide a basis for people in England to say, no, we don't recognize the legitimacy of the monarchy, and we need a common law republic. So I think it's all very exciting because it's a way that people can defend themselves whenever there are these attacks by these illegitimate crown authorities.
Yeah, I've just read somewhere somebody exercised his right under Magna Carta. It's a Pembrokeshire in Wales businessman. Now, he was driving his car, got stopped by the police, and the man called Mr. Jones, ironically, because it's a popular Welsh name. I was thinking something else there, Jack Jones, on your own. Anyway, the guy was on his own in the car, and he said to the police officer, I don't, what's the words, that he didn't give consent to be governed by that police officer.
Right.
And the policeman wanted a breath test and to see documents. Because of that, he was jailed for 22 days. If these things are meant to help, surely it would have worked. When Mr. Jones said, I don't want to be governed by you, he wouldn't have got the jail if he used the Magna Carta correctly.
Well, yeah, and if we were actually in England or anywhere, if we were actually living under a lawful system that followed Magna Carta and the inherent liberties, the cop wouldn't have been able to do that. He knew that he'd be put away himself for wrongful arrest, assault, etc. But the fact that the cops continue to get away with it means we're living under a different system. And what we thought we lived under has actually been supplanted and replaced with, an admiralty law system of unaccountable judges, a corporatocracy, really, that's not accountable to anybody. and it's got its own private. I mean, we know that the police forces, like the prisons, are increasingly privatized. They're private corporations. It's like the taxation systems in Canada and America, and probably in England, are actually offshore corporations that take your money out of the country and invest elsewhere. It's not even a legitimate taxation system we're under. So we're actually starting a criminal court case in Canada on the whole fraudulent taxation system here. And a lot of people are showing interest in this because it affects everybody. And so, that shows you that it addresses that whole issue of what we actually live under, how it's unlawful, and it needs a lawful system back in place.
It surely does, yeah. And guest in the chat room is saying, is there any difference between the common law rights and the human rights?
Well, really, it's different words for the same thing. Human rights, and the United Nations recognized that in the debate leading up to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted after the World War II. It recognized right down the line, going back to like the philosophers John Locke and Rousseau and others, and Thomas Hobbes, they all recognized that rights are derived not from the granting of a government, but from the inherent nature of being a man or a woman, that you're born with those liberties, and not freedoms. Now, here, I wanted to also mention this word freedom. It comes from a German word Freiheit, which meant the rights given to you by a landowner. It's an old Saxon word, and the peasants in Germany were given Freiheits, which were rights. You have the right to own a little bit of land and create crops for the landowner and live under his protection, and he granted you certain rights called Freiheits or freedoms. So even the word freedom was a conditional thing granted to you by a ruler and could be taken away at any time. So you got to be careful about the language, because it either comes from that a bunch of people of a small minority trying to own the earth for themselves, and to do that they have to keep everybody in a mental cage, and a legal cage whereby they hand over their authority to them. Don't forget Jean-Jacques Rousseau in The Social Contract, which is almost a banned book around the world now, because what it said is, we never surrender our sovereignty when we establish a government. We may elect people, but we don't hand over our authority to them, which Locke and Hobbes said you did. You hand over your authority to the king or parliament, and that's it. You got to do what they said. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, people should read The Social Contract. It's a very radical document. It says, you may create a system of government, but you never relinquish your sovereignty to a member of parliament, to a king, to a ruler or president, anybody. They don't have your sovereignty, and you can retract it at any time. You can withdraw your consent, and then they have no authority over you. That idea is what we rest on. That is really the common law, but it's different than a, quote, human right, which is often dispensed by a government, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah, I'll just repeat what you were saying earlier on. Sunday, I was looking at the wrong thing. Sunday, that's tomorrow, June 14. We have Kevin on bbsradio.com/Radio Free Kanata. Kanata is spelled Kanata. And the show's about reclaiming Magna Carta and our national liberties. To no one will we sell, to no one will we refuse, or delay right or justice. Article 40 of the Magna Carta, June 15, 1215. Well, that's the last question, and we'll get Patrick on about the subject. So how do we reclaim our national liberties then with the system we've got now?
Well, you can't under the system you have now, and unfortunately, a lot of us expend our energy and years trying to work through the existing courts. And sometimes you get, temporary victories as individuals, but that's kind of illusory, because we're not talking about individual rights. We're talking about a new collective. We're talking about something that will benefit everyone. And that doesn't mean taking on the system individually. It means setting up a new framework for a new society. And we can do that. We have to, create, in other words, what we're doing in Canada as a model. At the end of October, there's the Constitutional Convention to adopt an actual constitution for Kanata. And we've never had one. It's like the English people have never had a constitution, because authority still rests in the hands of this fiction called the Crown. And so when you establish a constitutional framework, then people can say, okay, I'm not going to go to this Crown Court for justice. I'm going to the High Court of Justice of the Republic, which is being established. And we are going to adjudicate through common law. So people have got to look at their issues in a broader context now, not just, fighting to get our kids back, fighting this fraudulent taxation or police brutality or whatever. We've got to always put it in this bigger, I would say, spiritual and political context of what are we creating? What do we need to create for all of us? Not just how do I, take on City Hall and get justice.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to read, if people go to itcs.org, they can download your Hidden No Longer book, Genocide in Canada, Past and Present. You've done a film as well on that, I believe, as well.
Unrepentant. It won a bunch of awards, not in Canada, of course. It won awards outside of Canada, in the States. It documents the planned genocide by the Church of England, the Vatican, the United Church, Catholic Church in Canada, and the Crown, the deliberate extermination of over 50,000 Native children, basically to get the land and resources. The Canadian government admitted last week that thousands of children died. They've admitted what I've been saying for 15 years. But there's no consequence under their system. Nobody's going to trial in the Crown Court. Not one person has ever been indicted for any of those killings. So we're, at the same time as they're admitting it, they're also acknowledging that, well, we're a criminal body and we're getting away with it. And the only way you can do something about that is to replace the criminal body, as Nuremberg demonstrated. So anyway, that's a long way to answer your question, but it's really, the genocide is an inevitable outgrowth of when you have a small number of people running the world for themselves. You've got to divide and conquer, you've got to pit people against one another, and you've got to say some people are less human than others in order to keep these few people on the throne, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just going to thank, we've got 190 listeners at the moment. I think we have a threshold of 200 at any one time, because I was looking earlier on and I thought, well, that hasn't changed in half an hour. It went straight in at 190. So thanks to all the listeners for that. Chat room's open, freedomtalkradio.co.uk/chat room. On the website, you can listen to the other shows from the past few weeks and years, really. Right, we're going to take about a minute promo, and we'll be back with our good friend, common law lawyer. You love him, we all love him, Patrick Cullinane.
You've witnessed crimes being committed by public servants against members of the public. It's in the public interest that you come and talk about it on Freedom Talk Radio. We're providing a platform for all volunteers, guests, hosts, and people who've been through traumatic times to come and talk about it, so we can get our remedies. We can change the way things are done in the UK with the public service. We can demand they act with honour at all times. Please come and volunteer. Call Andy Peacher on Freedom Talk Radio 2013@gmail.com or telephone 01 444 390 270. Thanks.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is freedomtalkradio.net, and you are listening to Freedom Talk Radio.
From beautiful Saline in southeastern Michigan.
Around the world.
This is the 2009 Top 10 Webcam in the World winner. This is SETV.
And another thing, when you visit the website at www.freedomtalkradio.co.uk, there is a donation button on there. You don't have to give anything in particular. Just if you've got any spare change, throw it in the PayPal account. The money will be used, to keep the station running, really. If it wasn't for dedicated volunteers and hosts that we have, we wouldn't be here. And dedication isn't a word to use sort of loosely. Some people like myself, and there's Nilu, we've got Tim, we've got loads of people who host the shows. Bill Zam from Michigan, part of the SCTV arm of us, which is a video version of doing live shows. We spend sometimes 12 to 15 hours every day. We're not doing it for glory. We're not doing this for ego. We're absolutely doing this because we love helping people and we want to do what's right. It's our duty to do what's right. It's not an option to leave it and criticize other people that are doing good work. And one of them good people who are working tirelessly down there in London is our Patrick Cullinane. What we'll do, Patrick, we'll go straight into any questions, or comments regarding what Kevin's just said. Kevin can obviously chirp in when he wants as well. And then after that, Patrick will talk about the event in London. Welcome, Patrick.
Hello, Andy, Kevin, Needle.
Hi, Pat.
All the listeners out there. I'm Patrick Cullinane, and I'm actually taking an action on behalf of myself and the people on the 15th of June, which is the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta. And I'll just read out. I'll put it in the chat box there, so that you know what it is. It's just gone in there now. In the public interest, please join us in the millions at the Royal Courts of Injustice on the 15th of June 2015 at 12 noon for a class action against the judiciary, JEWDICIARY, which is the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta 1215, the constitutional law of the land, and take back our courts from the Jews, and then bring them to justice by the law of the land that they have hijacked now in the interest of the State of Israel. As you know, this is high treason. Happy birthday, Magna Carta, 800 years of guaranteed freedoms and justice for all. Trial by jury is people power. Now, when you go into the courts, you have got to demand and exercise your right to trial by jury if you want to nullify bad laws, defend yourself, defend your country, defend democracy, eliminate the police state, protect your property against trespass, smash thieving banksters, imprison corrupt and treacherous judges, save the environment, enforce just causes, preserve family values, safeguard freedom of speech, uphold the Constitution, restore the rule of law, ensure prosperity, ensure equality, live in peace and harmony. Common law does not include any statutes made by government or decisions made by judges. This the Jews are also ignoring and making up their own law on behalf of Israel to wipe us Christians off the face of the earth. Now, the Queen made a speech recently, and she didn't mention nothing whatsoever about Magna Carta, which is the law of the land, in her speech.
And then the latest article I just read, Patrick, briefly, it says royals rush to Runnymede or Windsor for the celebrations of the Magna Carta.
But these are all the fraudsters. You won't, the likes of Patrick Cullinane will not even get near it, or Kevin Annett. He won't get near it. They'll keep all of us back. They won't leave Neil O'Berry. They'll arrest Neil O'Berry, as they have done.
Sometimes you got to keep people safe.
Well, the only way you're going to keep yourself safe is to go in and demand your rights, because if you don't demand your rights, they're not going to give them to you, my friend. With their due process is the lawful requirement that the state must respect all of the lawful rights that are owed to people. Due process balances the power of the law of the land and protects individual people from it. When a government harms people without following the exact course of the law, this constitutes a due process violation, which offends against the rule of law. Now, this is the problem we're having, because, well, if I go into court now with a client, I will run the judges out of the court. It's as simple as that. They're not going to stand with me in the court. But how many other people are out there that are going to prepared to do the same thing? But there's one guy that I know, and that's John Patterson. He'll do it. But we've got 11 from these people that are actually successful. I've done cases in Ireland, and the judge refused jurisdiction. That was on the paper. I made him refuse jurisdiction. He had no jurisdiction.
Yeah, Patrick, do you have any comments regarding what Kevin was saying about the history of the Magna Carta?
Kevin is spot on. I believe I agree with everything that Kevin is after saying there. Apart from he said that it's not operational now. It is if the people enforce it. The people going into the courts.
Right.
And I don't believe that any man should be out demonstrating in the streets, because you're going out and you're going in, you're challenging the police, who are an army for the state, to murder you with batons. Look at the way they're tooled up. Look at what they're doing with the people on the street, and they're kicking them to death. You want to take all of this into the courts. Take these people on in the courts, not out in the streets. They're going to turn these gangsters on you.
Patrick, can I just ask you, because what we've got in the courts is we've got people who are hijacking our courts. So in order for us normal people to go and hijack from the hijackers, we've got to understand what is a hijacker. I mean, it's not just that one person witnesses one judge behaving in a treasonous way in every day, and they've never seen treason before. So how do they know what you know in the first time it's done to them? You know, you and I and Kevin and we've been going for I've been going for 15 years, just like Kevin, and you have gone much longer than that, Patrick. So how do we get the people who for the first time may be going in front of a judge thinking that this is a judge who is going to be honourable towards them? How are they going to cope with a child being kidnapped and lies by these public servants and a judge who's already made his mind up before you go in there?
Yeah, but the thing about it is the judge has got no jurisdiction, is what I'm telling you. And
no, but how do the parents know that? You know.
Pardon, Nilu?
Sorry, how would the parents who believe that these people are honest, truthful?
Well, they've got to be seminars, and if they look at my correspondence is out there public, right? This is what you've got to do. You've got to put in the corruption into your application that's actually going on, and what the police are doing, that they're not protecting the people. You've got to have that in your application.
The thing is, Patrick, people don't believe that this can be true, what we've been through. They just think it's a one-off.
Well, the papers now, even though 96% of the world's media is controlled by 6 Jewish companies. Now that's a big stumbling block, but we can take it on because we know it now, and we're on the radio now. We're voiceless no more. You can see the the videos that I'm making now, and Kevin Annett is making, and the people can learn from these. Don't worry about Kevin Annett has been rubbished on the internet the same as me, but these are agents.
Yeah.
Like Mark Windows. And these will be funded. They will be funded to actually put you down. But if you actually go into the court and you take on these judges, right? When I was robbed of my 4-bedroom house in Kingsbury in London, I wasn't aware of what was going on at all. I was green. They took advantage of me because I was a very vulnerable person. And this is what they relied on. And their lie was so big that even my family didn't believe me.
Right. That's it.
And this is what I find with my clients as well. That their families don't believe them because, the state wouldn't do a thing like this, would they? You go down to the court, you get justice. That's what I thought. Right,
and the thing is, when they make these allegations, and they know that these are false allegations against parents, people start thinking that because these allegations have been made, they must be true. And I even had a judge say to me, well, why would the local authority prosecute you if there was no law? It's almost like a predetermination.
The problem is, Neelo, you see, if you look at dispatches, right, they had they done a documentary there, Inside Britain's Israel Lobby. Now that's where it's all bogged down.
I wanted to ask Kevin, when did the Satanists actually infiltrate the religions?
No, just one second. Sorry, Neelo. Because
Sorry.
people need to hear this, right? There was a video on Channel 4 UK broadcast, November the 16th, 2009. Dispatches, Inside Britain's Israel Lobby. Dispatches investigates one of the most powerful and influential political lobbies in Britain, which is working in support of the interests of the state of Israel. Yes, well, you got it.
Well, I believe I know the Israeli border was created on the 15th of May 1948, but I believe the Satanists have been around a lot longer than that. And I just wanted to find out from Kevin exactly when did the Satanity take control of our government?
Well, I mean, this goes back many centuries, and we have one of the pieces of evidence that was introduced in the court case we did in Brussels about the child trafficking and that, involving the present Pope Francis as well, Jorge Bergoglio. There was a document submitted showing the Ninth Circle sacrificial cults were operating in the 1700s, and these things go on century after century. They go by different hats, but it's really the same. What's behind it is that parasitic energy that literally feeds off the blood of the innocent, the suffering of the innocent, our energy. And, it's why they need to keep people in a state of continual fear and intimidation, because they're literally feeding off that. And so this is very old. It didn't just start, recently.
Yeah, because, because of the West being outside the gold standard, they're printing paper money anyway, so why do they need to make us feel like we have to have loans if they really do have that ability to be trillionaires themselves? How is it there's the difference between the very rich and the very poor has just got infinitely bigger? If what you're saying wasn't true, it's absolutely right. They just wanted to put fear and enslavement in our minds. It wasn't that and they've hidden the advanced technology. It wasn't that we couldn't have stayed at home and enjoyed the time with our kids. We could have, but it was that mentality of feeding off our suffering. And I'm saying it in the past tense because I actually believe it's not there anymore.
Now, that lobby that I was telling you about, dispatches, that lobby operates from within Parliament. And the tactics it implies behind the scenes with engaging with print and broadcast media. Now, we know now that there's 96% of the world's media controlled by 6 Jewish companies.
Yeah, as you know, it seems
total.
Yeah, and as you know, the financial system started about around 1700s, late 1700s, of banking, this paper money banking. Is that right?
I'm not an expert on it, but I'm sure other folks are.
It's all got to be to go back to restoring the rule of law, and that will be done under Magna Carta 1215. There's a lot of people with these radio shows and all that, and they're not actually who they are purporting themselves to be, neither. And they will bring on people that's not educated on the radio as having a lot of knowledge, we'll say, on Magna Carta 1215. Now, People Internet Radio brought a guy on the other night, Patrick Cullinane, and he was on the Sean Maguire show with Gordon Bowden and John Patterson. Now, that guy didn't know nothing whatsoever about Magna Carta, and they were actually asking him about the action that I was taking on the 15th of June.
So sorry, Patrick. I was going to say, did you want to tell people, you know, where exactly you're going to meet tomorrow? Just because of I've got a note here from Andy just to make sure I get everything across about tomorrow.
Monday.
No,
Monday. Sorry.
15th.
Yeah, Monday.
It's on all the websites, right? It's at the Royal Courts of Justice on the 15th of June, 2015, at 12 noon for a class action against the judiciary and the Crown. But I will have an indictment, and I will be demanding a trial by jury of our peers.
Would that be in Court 37?
That would be in Court 37.
And that's the Queen's Bench. So do you want people to wait for you inside the Court 37 or outside the court building?
Well, I hope the people that are going to be down there will not fit in that court. Will not fit in the whole of the court. They'll take over the 73 courtrooms. And they will be there to witness what is actually going on, to restore the rule of law. Once and for all, enough is enough. We're all being robbed. There is none of my clients have got justice. I have wrote letters on behalf of Neelu Berry.
You have, Patrick, it's true.
Right?
You have. And, you know, when people go in...
I have wrote the equivalent of 100 books writing to these gangsters. And all they will do is ignore them. But when you actually go into the court and take an action against them, then they sit up. They leave you alone.
So, you know, this claim form, Patrick, do we have to go and pay the fee, the fee for a hearing beforehand?
No, I will actually get a fee exemption on that, right? They put me out of work. They actually denied me a means to live, basically.
Can I comment on that? Because not many people know that the forms are available free of charge, and so is a fee waiver for people on means-tested benefits, or people who are disabled, or people who are of pension age. Believe it or not many people know that. Compliments, I think, to what you said earlier, Patrick, that the other shows don't know what they're talking about. It's a compliment because, you know, we only get the best brothers and sisters on this station, such as yourself and Kevin, and we've got Jules coming on very shortly in the future. He's very good at psychology and how they, you know, manipulate you. Jules is one of our calling people later on, and he's got a few questions regarding sort of common law. We've also got on the line in about 10-15 minutes, we've got our friend Scott from the US of A. He wants to talk a little bit about habeas corpus, and all this is obviously in line with people using these methods to get their children back or to stop an action whatsoever. So I just thought I'd remind everybody what's happening at this stage. Carry on, Patrick. You're a good man, and do interact with Kevin. He's like an encyclopedia of knowledge.
We are certainly on the same track. Mm-hmm. Kevin, Annett, and me are certainly. I've been listening to the man. I have studied him, right? And especially when they tried to discredit him, right? And I said, well, he's got to be good if this is happening because they're doing the same thing with me.
Right. I wanted to mention something on that, Pat. You know, when the boot really came down on me in the last few years, I began to get quite active in Ireland. And we were holding protests in Dublin. We were confronting Archbishop there because they were involved. Do you remember when the remains of those babies were found in a cistern in Tuam in County Galway?
Yes.
And it turns out this Cardinal Sean Brady was involved in trying to cover it up and may have been complicit in that whole thing. He resigned as soon as we kind of exposed that. And I was on Sean McGuire's show, but then all sorts of people began flooding his show, demanding that I be taken off the air. And he did. He eventually just wouldn't interview me anymore.
I had it the other night, right?
Yeah, and so for some reason, they're really worried about Ireland and us being active over there. I wonder if you had any thoughts about that.
Because there's a lot of good fighters in Ireland. Look at the people that are on the streets. If you harness that power and take them into the courts, instead of telling them with their promissory notes, that's a load of crap.
Me and Neely was only having a discussion earlier on, I won't mention the names, about very active people who know loads of people in common law and other areas of, you know, the truth movement. And she was saying, you know, how the Irish people, north and south, are just the best at information.
Yes, but they've got to be led by leaders. Now they won't leave me or Kevin Annett, I can assure you, on those radios as Kevin Annett has said, and I've got the same experience. They don't want me on there. There was Gordon Bowden and John Patterson on there the other night, and they were discussing my case work. And they brought in Pat Felden from Scotland, and he knows nothing whatsoever. You can go on his Facebook page, and he knows nothing whatsoever about common law. He said that Magna Carta was restricted to an island in the Thames. This is what he came out with on the show, and then he was boasted up by Kevin McGuire.
Sean McGuire.
Sean McGuire, right? As a great authority on common law. And this is what's going on. These guys are funded to actually put down Kevin Annett and Patrick Cullinane.
But we know that for a fact. We know that actually some of the people I worked with, there's this one fellow, John Deegan, who had worked with me in Dublin, and he suddenly switched sides and began to put out all this, you know, really defamatory stuff about me that wasn't even true. It turns out, from the other people I knew in Dublin, he had been meeting with the Archbishop regularly. And so some of this smear campaign and funding is coming right out of the Archbishop's London office in Dublin there. Archbishop Dermot Martin, who actually helped pay off all the witnesses. Do you remember the lawsuits they were bringing about the Magdalen laundries and about all the children who had died there? Archbishop Martin went around and bought off all the witnesses and you know, pressured the media not to cover this stuff. So that's one of the things we're up against, like in Canada and anywhere where we get close to the actual crimes.
But we know it now, though. We know it now, and we're viceless no longer.
Yeah.
We've actually got greater power over them now, and we'll use it.
Yeah. Patrick, I'm in the chat room. Everybody was wondering if you have a link to Monday's event, or...
I've actually put it in there on the chat room.
No, that ain't the chat room we're talking about. That's the Skype room.
And can you actually direct that in there, Andy?
Yeah, they're wanting a link. So it's a sovereign one, is it? .net?
Yeah, that'll open up for everything. The documents, the whole lot. It's a website.
And then it's already there then in the chat room.
Right.
So
Are they having problems? Are they having problems with it?
No. The PDF doesn't seem to open. There was a PDF going in. You have got the right chat room, yeah. Sorry.
Patrick, I had a question too. What is the exact address of the Courts of Justice in London? Nearby.
It's in the Strand. That is also on that website.
Okay.
I think it's like London WC2A 2LL.
It's actually on that website now.
That's just the Royal Court of Justice, the Strand, London, WC2A.
Station is Temple.
I'll give you a bit of a doodah. Yeah, it's on the Strand, commonly called the Law Courts. It's a court building, obviously, rubbish. Where's it gone? Locations near. Is there a famous landmark near there?
Well, Temple Station is the nearest station.
Alderwich, and the Temple Station and the River Thames. It's about 15 minutes walk from Charing Cross. You're going east from Charing Cross.
Yeah, so it's Aldwych. I nearly said YouTube. Tube station.
In the Strand.
Yeah.
Interesting, just a little point of interest. I had an ancestor, Peter Annett, and he got thrown in prison in 1761 because he was writing seditious pamphlets challenging the authority of the Church of England. So, this kind of stuff runs in the family, I guess. But they had him in the public stocks right off the Strand. They had him there for a whole week, practically killed him. He was in the 70s. And they had him, in the stocks where they put your head and your arms in the wooden stocks, and people can throw shit at you and everything. I guess that's what they do to us now, Papa, in a different way. They smear us over the internet, but they used to put us in the stocks. They try to humiliate us and break us.
Well, they try and break you, but it makes a man of you at the end of the day, though.
It does.
It makes a man of you at the end of the day that they won't be able to handle.
No.
All they can do is murder, and if they do that, I can assure you, I haven't committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So Patrick, can anybody do what you're doing on Monday? Can we all just get a form filled in and demand, that from now on we want juries in every court?
Yes. Now, don't forget that Monday is the first day. That it must continue from Monday, right? We've got a lot of work to do. We've got to run these people out of courts.
Mm-hmm.
We got to work together.
What happened to those folks? Do you remember up in Liverpool a few years ago where 500 people went into the courtroom and removed that judge?
Yes.
Where are those folks now? Who did that, and how can we? Are they still active, or whatever happened to that? I know the government forced YouTube to take off that film clip of it. So, do you have any news on that, or anybody?
Well, you see, the thing about it is there's an awful lot of people bought off here that we don't know, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And one day they're fighting the system, and one day they're working with the system.
Right.
Right. If you're going to take money, you know what I mean. So I won't be bought.
Right.
I won't be bought. I said I will be a millionaire, but to be over the table. I will not take any money behind closed doors.
Yeah.
The world will know what these people have done to me.
Yes.
I broke no law. I've always been an upholder of the law. I have never advocated for anyone to break the law.
So, Patrick, if we can just, I just want to go through the process that you've, on this website, people can print off the PDF, or can they actually edit it? Is that editable PDF, or do they have to type it in for themselves?
They can edit the PDF if they want, right? But don't have it too long, because I will have the structure of the corruption on the main document.
So are you saying that you're going to be there every day from Monday on?
Not every day now, Nilu. Let's be reasonable.
No, I mean, like, what should we tell people? Obviously, what is the best day for them to come? Because they'll prefer to come when you're there, won't they?
Yeah.
So just give them the days.
Now, I would say that everyone that is there, that they actually talk to one another, they exchange details, walk up and say, this is me, this is Patrick Cullinane, and because they will all be there for the same reason.
Right. So what we say is that they come in with their paperwork in their hand. If they don't have that paperwork, they can get the claim form from the court. They can go and sort out their fees in the fees office, which is a bit of a walk, isn't it? Let them come at 10 o'clock when the court opens to get their paperwork together, so that when you arrive with your paperwork in your hand at 12 o'clock and go to court 37, they're already there, ready with their paperwork and having sorted out their fees.
This is what I'm saying, Nilu, that there is cases that I'm going to have, of course, right, ready, not alone my own, but these people are not going to be left behind. That these people the case will not be held on Monday. No. So
this is a claim form. It's called N1, is it? That we've got
N244.
Sorry, 244 application.
Right. And then there will be an affidavit, and that's how it is. And of course there'll be my case, and I will be representing the people of the United Kingdom.
And when because I didn't see the affidavit yesterday.
Want me to represent them now, right?
Sorry?
That is people that want me to actually represent them, and they submit their paperwork.
Right. And the affidavit that goes with your application, is that on the website now? Would you want to read that out to us, because we'd like to hear it?
No, well, that isn't on the website yet. That will be going into the court. Right.
Do you want to give us a rough summary of so we get an idea what people should be, how it should sound, if it's really brief, like just the tip of the iceberg, what they need to write down, the main points?
Well, it's the judges and what they've actually experienced. We know what they've experienced because the weight of the evidence is incontrovertible on all of these cases. No one has got nothing. Even the papers are saying it.
Okay, sorry. I think we've got two callers Andy wants to bring on, and sorry about that. I'm the phone on.
Yeah, that's all right. We've got caller. We know these people, which is always a bonus anyway. We've got caller 504 area code, and it should be our friend Anonymous Repo from the US, and I think he's got his own individual question about habeas corpus. It's probably not so much of a question, but more of a comment on people can use this to get their children back, and they're using this system in America, and they're winning. Anon Repo, hello.
Hey, how you doing, Andy?
I'm doing fine, my friend. And we can listen to Anon Repo on Freedom Talk Radio tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. UK time. That's 1 p.m. Central and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. You wanted to, start off. Do you want to sort of say hello to Kevin, Annett, and Patrick Cullinane.
Well, hello, Kevin and Patrick.
Patrick,
definitely an honor.
Yeah, Patrick's a common law court lawyer, and Kevin does the genocide issues in Canada for the children. Did you want to ask them any questions on what you've heard, or do you just want to talk about habeas corpus?
Well, I don't think we have enough time in this forum to ask all the questions that I could pick their brain on. On the habeas corpus, I know someone mentioned that there was some whack pop that was saying that it was isolated to an island, but for that, even in our Constitution over here in the U.S., it was only mentioned once, but it was mentioned during the Civil War that they suspended the right of habeas corpus. So if we have it over here, then obviously it was more than restricted to just an island. It's common law, and it's followed all the way over to the U.S. And so obviously we share that law. And what we've been starting to do over here, very big in Texas and in Kentucky, is actually filing the writ of habeas corpus for the return of our children. And what that forces is it gets us out of the kangaroo court, because the problem is with the youth court is it's not based on any burden of proof whatsoever. There's no jury in there, and in some states it's scarier than that. Mississippi, for example, you don't have the right to an attorney, and they are still combined with the juvenile justice system. So there's a prosecuting attorney, there's a guardian ad litem that has coffee with the judge, and a CPS worker, and it's based on their opinions if you're in trouble or not. And so that's a little bit scary. You don't think about a couple guys having coffee discussing what they think of people. We all know that attorneys go in the back room and have discussions with judges many a times on cases, and many times people know each other. And then even more scary than that, in Mississippi, if I say, Andy, I believe you're using drugs, I need you to go down and take a hair test. Well, Andy's poor. Andy works minimum wage, and he's trying to keep his family afloat. He can't afford a hair test because he just paid his light bill, and that was the last bit of penny he has. Andy's kids are now going to be taken. He is now labeled a drug user. He's labeled a drug user not because he failed a drug test, but because he couldn't afford a drug test. And so the same thing that's happening in the United Kingdom is happening over here in the United States, and we all share in the common law. And what I'm finding as I'm venturing out is we're all separated out into groups, and it started where I was looking at states, and then I started looking at the United States, and now I'm honestly looking at the globe, and we're all sharing in the same problem. And common law is the answer because we all share in those laws. And if there was a way to coordinate you with, for instance, there's a gentleman named Little Bear in Florida, and his name's Little Bear because he's full-blooded Cherokee, but he is a common law attorney. And the link, if we can link all you guys up together, the knowledge combined would be amazing. It would be incredible.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we're trying to do the internet stations on Facebook, Anonymous Repo, and then the Anonymous group in US. I've had loads of different personal messages from different people. They're saying, we're here now. We're the parents. We're the families. We're the people. We're winning. They're getting scared. Let's just do more, and it's fantastic. Anonymous,
well, I can give you an
what's
example
happening?
How scared the FBI is getting, if you'd like.
Yeah, I do believe we're in the end times of this system of things, and I think we will win. What else do you want to talk about? Because we kind of got a flow going.
All right. Down in Hancock County, Mississippi, there's a news article because slowly the media is starting to accept these stories. I heard you guys talk about the blackout of the media, and that's a reality. And that's been the benefit of Anonymous's involvement because the media is willing to cover us. And because they're willing to cover us, it inadvertently starts to cover the other problem at hand. And so now more and more news agencies are willing to start to cover that CPS problem. Down in Hancock County, Mississippi, there is an honorable sheriff there. There was a case where a CPS worker falsified documents to steal children from a good home and got caught red-handed. And that was taken to the sheriff, and the sheriff is actively investigating and pursuing criminal charges on those workers and getting to the bottom of it. And the governor's office, because over here the CPS workers answer to the governor's office in every state, tried to take the case from the sheriff. And the sheriff got on the news and said, last year I sent you a case like this, you handed it to your attorney general, which handed it back to them, and they swept it under the carpet. This is a criminal matter, and we are going to investigate it. And that process, a gal named Mary Gill, has been, in the media big time because she was the one that was wronged. And she's helped organize protests for Anonymous and become a very active part. Well, the reason her kids were taken is, I'm sure everyone's heard of the fire cults with the firefighters. Well, she was a secretary at a fire station. She ain't outside the office, she's a secretary. And local law enforcement did look into it, and there was no evidence on her, and so that case then was set aside and nothing to be done with it. Maybe there was a fire cult, maybe there wasn't, but a secretary, let's be real about that. Well, the FBI recently has visited Mary Gill, and they told her, they said, we're opening a federal arson case on you now, and we're going to be looking into you. And it might not be in your best interest to be so politically active and fighting the fight on the news while you're under a federal investigation. Nothing more than blatant out-and-out intimidation and trying to stop someone from exercising their freedom of speech. So, America, home of the free, we're all sharing in the same problem, where we have more or less a secret court in the United Kingdom, and Canada, and Australia, and Mexico. I've been talking to wonderful people around the world, and they're taking advantage of the situation. And there are children that need to be protected, but that's what's getting even scarier. Is I talked to a foster home here in Mississippi. He runs 15 units, and he fights the other side that we don't hear about, and it makes sense. He hires attorneys through his ministry to fight for that sexually abused child sent back home, that abused kid sent back home, and we're like, wait a minute, they're sending kids home. Well, it kind of makes sense. There's 100 beds, there's 200 victimized kids, they want the adoptable kids. So the severely abused kids, they're sending them home. And this gentleman is fighting for those severely abused kids. So the system's not out to protect the kids whatsoever. You might have a good worker and commend to that good worker, and you might have a good judge. But the system as a whole, regardless of the country, it's broken, and it's not the way common law was set up. It's not the way any of these systems in free countries are supposed to be. The U.S. From 2014 was released as the #1 human rights violator in the world, and no one wants to talk about that. And it's to do with some of these issues.
Yeah, non-repo, the UK and America, I think they're joint first on that one. Can I just, forgive me for now, we've got another caller, a very important caller. He's one of our future show hosts, and he also talks about the children issues of, the CPS abuse over in the UK from a psychological point of view. Tonight he's got a different question, or he's got a different, a few minutes, he's going to tell us all about something. I've actually forgotten. So you stay there a minute, my friend, because even at the top of the hour, we could probably still go over time, because the next thing I want to talk about after Jules is an update on what Kevin's doing with the, his work in Canada, the genocide, when he's going on tour, things like why aren't the Pope in jail, why aren't the Queen in jail, but basically an update of everything, because we realise we've kept him, silent for a little while.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm glad to be listening to everybody. It's a good show. Yeah,
right, we'll get Julian in. He's going to do a Thursday night show. We'll call him Jules for short. Jules, hello, my friend.
Evening, Andy. How are you?
Fine. I forgot the subject. Say hello to Patrick, Nilu, and Kevin.
Hi there, guys. I've been listening on the radio.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. A couple of bits that I would like to kind of add onto this. I've got a kind of more of a sideline sort of interest in regarding common law, and I was sort of really interested in what Patrick was turning around and saying. I've been sort of followed a few cases where judges and stuff are being actually arrested, and more in lines with the corruption of billing and councils and such and so forth, and the misrepresentation of unsigned court orders. Bailiffs are not actually serving court orders and stuff like that. So there's all these sort of systems and stuff in operation. I've just actually turned around and put a Facebook post regarding your campaign, Patrick. Sort of going off of what Nilu sort of said, what's the best action that somebody like myself, who's got incidences with the courts, who wants to action something and come and support you, what's the best action someone can do, as in to take action on Monday, to go and get the paperwork and where to attend, and such and so forth. And I'll put that out onto Facebook right now.
Now, you see, the thing about it is, I know all the rat runs. I know all the procedures. I want to actually teach other people to do exactly what I'm doing. Because, like you said, there are bailiffs coming in with no paperwork. There is no courts. There is no courts. The local council is issuing warrants to bailiffs to come out and steal people's property from their homes and their motor vehicles and money. And it's happening up and down the country. Now, they tried the same thing with me, but I took an injunction out against Harrow Council and Newland bailiffs. And this is the thing. And once they know that you actually know that, they're going to tread very lightly.
Yep.
Now, other people, there's my MP now is Nick Hudd. I've got several cases now with of PCNs. And as I told Jill Brown the other day, that Nick Hudd is not above the law, that he will round up in court with me if he's not going to represent his constituents. And he will. This is not hearsay, man. Right? We've got the coat off now, mate, and the sleeves are up.
Yep.
I know the process, but we want to teach other people how to do the same thing up and down the country, because they're terrorizing them and they're actually stealing money, and the police are involved. The police are leaving bailiffs into homes like they've done on the 8th of June at 162 Cannon Lane, HA5 1HX. Now I'm after that, and that's in Pella.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Patrick, there are literally lists of people now that are interested in doing this. But the big problem is the communication lines and getting everybody together, unifying everybody and getting the action together. Because so many people are interested in like the Freeman action, and they're interested in common law.
I'm not too interested in the Freeman action at all.
No, that part isn't the important part. The important part is how can these people come and support you on Monday? I would like to come and support you on Monday, but I don't really know how to attend this. And what I'm saying to you is, while we've got so many people listening, it's a good thing now to turn around and say what you would like to see action-wise for people to do.
Well, the people that will say that they've got bailiffs coming to their houses, and they've got to band together, and they've got to get down here and take numbers.
On what day?
Patrick, what Jules is saying is that Patrick Cullinane wants everybody on Monday the 15th outside the Royal Courts of Justice, London, the Strand, to mark the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta, 12 noon midday. Please arrive early if you want to join in the class action. Bring any proof of income, such as benefits, and then Patrick will guide you from there. You can talk to Patrick and probably Neely on the day.
And we'll say the 15th is not the only day. There's days after that there will be people there, and they will be taking the contacts of the people, so that we can all network.
Okay.
Can I just share my experiences of Court 37? Early, a few months ago, I was in there with a case for my sister in the St Thomas More building, and then there was the vigil outside for the Hampstead case outside the courts on a Monday, and it happened to be a Monday, and so I was trying to get a judge in Court 37 to regarding the children of the Hampstead. I was with Belinda and a few others trying to go into Court 37 to get a remedy because a judge in the family court had said that the remedy of the two children would be dealt with by the same judge that was dealing with the harassment against the accused in the family court. So there was a conflict, and trying to go to Court 37 to get an injunction to stop the same judge dealing with harassment that the judge was dealing with the children's custody. So we were denied audience with the judge a few times, and it's very hostile actually in there. Another occasion that I was in there, the judge called security and asked us to leave the courtroom and refused to give the remedy. So we know the Court 37, it doesn't actually provide remedies as it is, and we have to know exactly what to do. If the judge does call security, we have to say that the security is there for our protection, not to serve the judge. If the judge is calling security, he's not an impartial judge. And then, I did have to call the police from the courtroom because the judge had basically called security on us. There was 6 of us in the courtroom. So, people who go into the courtroom, they have to have a strong stomach for what might happen, and so I think people must know their way around a courtroom in order for them to actually be inside the courtroom. I would suggest people do trickle in, and they don't necessarily gather outside Court 37, but they kind of trickle in and don't come in a big group. And then I think probably not to make out that they're with us, but to make out whether everybody's independent, so they can't group us together, which is say, I don't know anybody, I'm just a student, I'm a law student, or I'm a journalist, or I'm a training to be a lawyer or something. That they like that. Otherwise, they don't let you in. They don't.
Julian, are you on Facebook, Julian?
Yes, I am, Patrick. Yeah.
Are you a friend of mine?
No, I'm not. But I will send you a friend request very shortly.
Right. Well, you see, the thing about it, we can work together, right? We can work together. Like you can I give you my email address, and we can work together. And I will show you my correspondence, what I do, and my casework, and you'll be able to copy that. And if you've got the balls, then to go out and teach other people.
Yes,
yeah.
Even in I've actually got my own case incident, similar kind of thing to Andy. Mine's very much on the lines of it being a sort of a similar thing to Father to Justice. I've got my daughter was abused, blatantly abused by her mum, to get me to manipulatively report her to social services, and to have the social services, having already been told I was paranoid. I had the courts and the social services take my daughter and place her back into the abusive household, with her mum already being recorded as an abuser. And with me complaining about this, the social services very shortly found out afterwards what I was reporting was telling the truth. And through the fact of it being a compensation plea, the authorities and the courts all stood by, and my daughter's contact was taken away from me. And I've actually been banned for 2 years from appealing. I've been threatened with a fixation order, which I believe now means if I'm reported as being fixated, I can be locked away from in a mental health for being fixated against an authority. And it's very much what's happening with sort of forced adoptions. I've had a dodgy psychological report made up against me by a non-professional, which I've called their bluff and went and got a legitimate registered one from a local authority's mental health institute, and passed it with flying colours within 4 days, and had perjury, lies, false accusations, all the manipulative disorders go on within abusive relationships, and with the same manipulations going on in court. So I've got my own case along that. So on a personal basis, Patrick, I'll be interested in not only just passing on the information, but also benefiting it for myself, really.
Yeah, well, I'll publicise it. I will
Excellent.
publicise it because that's exactly what they've done to me. They went down the Mental Health Act, right?
Yep.
And they said that I was delusional.
That's it. I've got exactly the same thing.
And can I butt in here, Patrick, for a minute? This is very interesting, Jules, because you're taking over one of our shows. Our good friend Kevin Annett, he's got a super radio show on a Sunday. He'd love to interview you because of, your links with psychology. So I'm going to send Kevin privately your email, and I've sent you Patrick. So, yeah, this is what we need to do, Neelu. And Neelu is my little guardian angel. She knew I knew what I was doing. She came into my life, and now we're all brothers and sisters, and the energy is going bigger. And we can have try to find the right word, we could have a fantastic relationship, brother, sister-wise, around the world with other people, if only you all join together. We don't need any hosts, so bosses, no kings, no queens. We just need common decency towards men and women and children, and love, really. And if you share what you know with each other, you share website links, if you get some money, share the money as well. Who cares? But at the end of the day, it's about sharing, because sharing means caring. And child abuse is no excuse.
I agree with you 100%, Andy.
Shall I read this website address, Patrick? It's www.ariseallsovereigns, that's spelled ARISEALLSOVEREIGNS.net. If you scroll down to the indictment link, We the People's indictment form, that is where you'll find the PDF which you can edit. And people will be able to hopefully see your affidavit on that website soon, Patrick, so they can do this. And it has to say at the bottom, isn't it, what is stated above is true to the best of my knowledge and belief. Is that right?
That's right.
So it'll be an affidavit of truth, and it will just say your name, your address.
Not at all. The judges don't have to do that at all, right? And this is where it's all wrong.
Yeah, so if the people bring this form, the N244, they can download it or edit yours, and then they just write some kind of an affidavit of what happened, the date, the name of the person who committed the crime against them, whether it's a kidnapping of their child, and the fraud that it was based on. They can quote the case of Lord Denning, what was it again, Beasley, and
Beasley.
Something in Beasley, 1956, where Lord Denning said fraud vitiates all. That means if there's any crime being committed by anybody along the way of the proceedings, the whole proceedings are null and void. So according to the affidavit of truth of the crime against a child or their property, then the family can get their remedy in Court 37. Is that right, Patrick?
That's right. And the Court 37, you see, is they've got no jurisdiction to hear the case. All that judge has got jurisdiction is to give relief. Give relief. Like whoever is attacking you, if the police are attacking you, or bailiffs are attacking you, or the local council is attacking you, they can give you an injunction, and it's a two-pronged action. And then you ask them to put it down for trial by jury, by your peers. They've got no jurisdiction but to do that. They cannot hear that case. All they're there is to give relief and set that case down for a hearing.
Yeah, I'll just repeat. Sorry, Patrick, I get carried away. Lord Denning said, by the way, no court in this land will allow a person to keep an advantage he is obtained by fraud, no judgment of a court, no order of a minister can be allowed to stand if it has been obtained by fraud. Fraud unravels everything. The court is careful not to find fraud unless it is distinctly pleaded and proved, but once it is proved, it vitiates judgments, contracts, and all transactions whatsoever. And that's swab.uk/Lazarus-Estates, Beasley, CA. Yeah.
But you see, the law has been hijacked, as I said, by the Israeli lobby in the UK. And this is the problem we have. Like Article 39 reads of Magna Carta, 1215, no freeman shall be arrested or imprisoned or deprived of his freehold or outlawed or banished or in any way ruined, nor will we take or order action against him except by the lawful judgment of his equals, trial by jury, and according to the law of the land. So what are the councils issuing warrants to bailiffs for? And they're going in and they're robbing the people in their homes without any due process. And then DVLA, they go to DVLA, and DVLA is selling the bailiffs your personal details. They're selling gangsters your personal details. And this is what's going on.
Can I expand on that, Patrick, a little bit? Because this has happened to me a few times now. The only reason I mention it is because you mentioned about the DVLA selling your private information.
Exactly.
When you move house, let's say you owe a food debt. So I'm not saying that it's a lifestyle that you should choose, but if you owe a food debts and you move to another area and you're on benefit welfare, you don't apply for any credit whatsoever, guess what? All of a sudden, your debt collectors are on the door. Where are they coming from? Very simple. The benefit agencies and the council tax from your local housing authority illegally sell your data to these debt collectors.
And they're gangsters.
Yep.
They're criminals. Now you've got Article 45 reads, we will appoint as justices, constables, sheriffs, or bailiffs only such as know the law of the realm and mean to observe it well. Sure, all of this is turned on its head by the Israeli lobby. And that's where it's all coming from. You've got the Talmud, and common law has been replaced by satanic Talmudic law in the UK. And the people have got to come to that realization. It's no good brushing over it and saying it's not happening, because it is.
Sorry, Patrick, what's happening at the moment? We've got 20 minutes left, and I always get goose pimples when Kevin speaks, because he's such a wonderful, knowledgeable man, and we haven't really heard from him for quite a while. In the next 10 minutes, Kevin, just give us an update of what you're up to, what the ITCS.org is doing, why is the Pope and the Queen still at large, and anything else you can remember.
Well, I don't want to cut into what everyone's saying, because it's all part of the same thing, really. We're talking about different aspects of the same beast. But the short answer to why the Pope and Queen are still walking around is because we're letting them. Actually, the two of them are hiding out. As you know, Pope Benedict has been hiding inside the Vatican since he resigned. In the same week we convicted him of crimes against humanity, he stepped down, as did his Secretary of State. And they've been resisting extradition. There's a lawyer in Washington, D.C., Jonathan Levy, who's actually trying to extradite him for trial in America. So, I mean, these guys are, they may have the prestige of office, but the point is they're on the defensive, they're on the run. And it's because of the actions of all you guys at the grouse roots. They know people are waking up, and so they're very careful these days. And another thing I wanted to mention is that we are. Nilo asked me to mention this because of the notice going out today. In Canada, on October 30th, there's a 3-day convention it's a constitutional convention establishing a legitimate republic in Canada to replace Crown authority. And we already have local common law courts operating outside the jurisdiction of the Crown. And this is something that people can do in their own countries. While it's important to take a stand within the system, it's also very important to establish an alternative outside it. And that's why we are inaugurating these common law courts under the authority of the Republic. And we're not only swearing in common law sheriffs, and there's several manuals we have online at canadarepublic.ca where people can read about how to train as a common law sheriff. We're actually deputizing the existing police. We're asking them, and we've issued stand-down orders to Crown agents in Canada, that's the judges, the members of Parliament, the police, everybody, the civil servants, to basically switch their allegiance to a new jurisdiction, the common law and the Republic of Canada. So this is exactly what needs to happen in England as well. And I wanted to put it out there to all the brothers and sisters listening that we also need to be building this bigger alternative for people so that what we do can't be co-opted by the existing system. And I think that's really important for us to be working on as well. And when I'm over in Europe again later this summer, that's something I hope to, sit down with people and talk to them more about and work with them.
Absolutely brilliant. Somebody's asked in the chat room, what is legalese?
Legalese?
Yeah.
It's a special language that lawyers and judges use to basically keep their control over the legal system. It's often Latin-based. It's kind of like judges and lawyers now are what priests used to be. They're this kind of mysterious figure who's supposed to have some kind of supernatural power or authority that we, the common people, don't have. But it's just, a lot of it's just based on their monopoly of the language. And they're keeping the language and the knowledge of what it really means from people. So, often a lot of these terms, like medical terms, you just have to, it's very easy to find out what the actual meaning of a word is. But how, as Pat and Jules and the others have been saying, it doesn't even matter what people claim they're doing in the legal system. They'll do whatever they want in this arbitrary system we're living under now, this de facto system, where, like, for example, as was mentioned from America, there's no burden of proof in the system at all, more and more. And this is because in a system like, juvenile detention system or something, it's where children and teenagers are regularly trafficked for a lot of money. And this is something we're tracing all over the planet, and there's a lot of money behind this, and so naturally they need a legal system that can be a tool to traffic people rather than any kind of justice. So we find most of the human trafficking going on is happening right in the system itself, through children's aid societies, through the courts and everything. And this is another reason we need the alternatives to the status quo.
Yeah, it still annoys me why people don't believe, the children being taken on the future risk of emotional harm. You say to them, especially one guy, and I won't mention his name now, Tim Haynes. He thinks genocide, satanical ritual abuse is just a figment of their imagination, our imagination, being the truth movement. I mean, I was explaining, I don't know if I explained it right, Nilu heard that just because, going to the most extremes where the baby's head is chopped off or the blood has been sucked out of that body, it doesn't mean, just because that didn't happen, that, they were planning to do that in the first place, because they start off, obviously, getting a child or getting a commodity, and then they sell it, they then abuse it, and then eventually, if you're that sick, you will do what I've just said about chopping the head off. It's still genocide in my mind every day of the week, and possibly, in certain circumstances, SRA. I mean, it's sick from 1 to 10, but yeah, do you agree with that, Kevin?
Well, yeah, I mean, this stuff goes on routinely, and as a matter of fact, the first time I encountered it was as a clergyman, where I was on the west coast of Canada. I was actually doing funerals of people in which the coroner confided to me that there were body parts missing when the police found it. I mean, you know, the coroners and the police and that is a fairly close-knit community. And once you're in it as a clergyman, you have access to amazing information. This is how I began to discover about these crimes of genocide and how they carry on. Because up and down the west coast, routinely, Aboriginal people's bodies appear and they're missing organs, or they're being ritually slaughtered. I mean, right there in Choom, Ireland, a whole cistern filled with dozens of remains of babies, and according to the Gardaí, the Irish police, one of the sources we have in Dublin in the main office, he said they went in and did their own investigation and they found that they had been ritually killed. That's why their bodies were chopped up. So we're not talking children, we're talking newborn babies ritually sacrificed and stuck in a cistern on the grounds of a Catholic orphanage. And as soon as we surfaced that story, Cardinal Sean Brady, the top Catholic official in Ireland, steps down. And that he steps down because of a Vatican policy of hiding the witnesses. He's off on a pension being hidden somewhere so that the police and others can interrogate him over what he knows about those ritual killings. So this stuff is very real, and it's one of the ways that they keep people intimidated. It's common on the Aboriginal reservations here. Whenever any dissidents start getting active, native dissidents, their children are taken, and they're held hostage by the government. And they say, if you get out of line and start challenging the government, and if you don't sign away your land and resources to these big multinationals, you'll never see your child again. So it serves that purpose of intimidating and terrorizing people. It isn't just some weird sickos who are killing children. It has a political, economic reason as well. So all of this is tied into what we're calling the ongoing genocide, and we need our own courts to adjudicate these issues. That's why we started the tribunals, the ITCCS, and so, you know, again, it all ties into everything people are talking about.
Yeah, I guess I pick on people that are vulnerable. You're talking about the Aboriginal people. We know in Canada and Australia they were the poor people. In America it was the Indian people. Of course, we've got white genocide, black genocide, normal genocide, if that's the right word. Jules on his shows is going to be teaching people how you can. I'll let Jules tell you. Jules, tell Kevin about what you're going to do on your show regarding psychology and how you can warn parents and how you have helped parents. And, you know, what these bad people do, you know, through psychology to get into your head, really.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's something which is a vast subject. It's something which I've been kind of researching for many years now, and come across the patterns which are repeating through psychological abuse. And here in the UK, I don't know if it's so much like in the States, but there's sort of this pattern of what's called narcissistic abuse, which through my own experiences with the manipulations, the patterns of behaviour which are eroding sort of the mind control within, inducing things like cognitive dissonance, using stuff like disassociation to shoot somebody in the same kind of
Sorry, George, the thing you're listening to, you have to turn off when you come on. Sorry, okay. It's an echo.
Is that better?
No.
Hold on 2 seconds. It was okay for a minute. How's that now?
No, it's not right yet.
Is that better?
No, not really. It's just a close what you're listening to. I guess that goes for Patrick as well if you've got anything open.
Is that better?
No.
I've taken my headset off. That's going through my computer.
You have to close the browsers down basically, and just leave Skype open. Talk. It might have gone.
No, I've just turned my volume down to try and stop the echoing. Is that better?
That's perfect now.
Okay. I'm not sure what, so I apologise for that.
Yeah, just repeat what you said, sorry.
It's basically through my own experiences and actually originating in relationship with psychological abuse and the personality disorders of narcissism, of sociopaths and psychopaths, and zero empathy personalities, and the way their roads on particularly the other parts of the population. These patterns of behaviour, which are consistent, and they can actually be seen within people's own families. You've got different dynamics that we actually attract our equal opposites when we come to emotional levels. So somebody who's very emotionally sensitive, going right up to people that have been previously abused, have got a tendency to re-attract or be re-attracted and attract psychologically abusive people. And it's actually how these psychological personality disordered people are the very same types of people who are moving up through sort of a backstabbing, manipulative way of, and what's recognised in the system, if you like, of benefiting these people, that they are what is considered as the elite. And the same patterns of behaviour are used within social services to break down empathic families of people who've got a good emotional integrity, and they're actually, through emotional manipulation and oppression, are actually broken down and suffering the same psychological effects that goes on within psychological abuse within a relationship. And the more I researched into this, the more I actually got hit by social services and by the authorities in the knowledge that I was actually naming the types of manipulations that were being used to invert the truth in courts, and the more of it sort of escalated the research. I recognised these patterns going right the way through the authorities in several different measures, to the point of where secret societies are able to turn around and basically discredit and banish individuals using psychology through the systems, and the whole process is already there and in place.
Are you there, Andy, or is there any feedback on that, Kevin?
It sounds fine to me.
Sorry, I stopped there thinking Andy was going to turn around and step back in. I didn't want to be over talking everybody.
Yeah, is Patrick still with us?
Yes, he's still with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically on my side of things, and the more things I've kind of come across has been very much coinciding with the same things that are going on within family courts, that are going on, as I say, within secret societies. And this is advanced over, and certainly through talking to Nilu and to Andy, again, it's advancing through the types of people that are in these sort of satanic cults, and explaining, the abuses that go on. Certainly with paedophilia, it's all basically the censored information that's it's been censored for years. Things like cult information centres that were set up in the UK, were running as successful charities. They were self-sufficient, and they've been closed down with just one complaint, although they've notified that there's over 500 working cults actually operational in the UK, and they've been helping people to come out of these cults, and this system has been hit. And with myself, I started a charity which is called Pear Shape, which is I'm hoping to get up and running off the ground. But I'm aware of other people that have been in a similar position, being hit in the same process, and under the same oppression. So everything is all tied in to this same kind of congregation of the people who are turned around and excelling in the elites and doing these kind of abuses and such and so forth. The children who are going through the systems aren't receiving any empathy or sympathy regarding being abused. If anything, it's the way I see it is it's almost a type of insurance policy to make sure the elites stay in sync with each other because of their self-absorbedness and their no loyalty to each other. I believe it's very much that child abuse is a system of insurance that they don't turn around and betray each other.
Jules, also, I'm just wondering if, you know, the trauma people go through, is this the reason when they're on these social media sites that really, you know, they don't want to join other groups? You know, you kind of stick in your group because you know the people and you don't want to socially interact with other groups of the similar cause. Also, I'm just wondering, you know, obviously if that happened, we would have more people together. That's what I've been trying to do personally. And then with Neelu in the last couple of months, or probably 6 months now, and with Bill in America, we've been really trying to gather people in one place. And the only concept we had that was different to everyone else was don't charge anybody a penny. Don't put any rules, regulations, any restrictions. Let them say, do what they want, and hopefully through social media, because if you think about it, if we have 180 listeners, which has gone down to 120 now, if you had 200 listeners as a round figure, they had 20 people that they knew that listen to the shows tomorrow because of recommendation. You would soon get the word out locally and nationally and internationally very quick. But do you think it's that psychological trauma that the government agents use to stop people sharing groups, sharing information, going to court and making these arrests? Is that what's going on? It's basically a psychological warfare, and luckily with peaches and pears, we can sort this out soon.
Well, there's a whole load of systems that are in operation regarding psychological sort of group control or control of the masses. I mean, and you're looking at something which stems from schooling. You've only got to look at schooling and say your education. How much education did you come out from a 12-year education? Basically, you're put into a system of working on a pattern basis of repetition in which you don't turn around and question your authority. It's basically you turn up, you do, you work, you go home, you eat, you return the next day. Authority is something which goes on behind closed doors, and we've just become accustomed to not turn around and question it. If we do, then obviously there's the discipline system is put in place. We've got such stuff as sodium fluoride, which is in our water supplies, which keeps everybody subdued. That actually knocks your emotional integrity to the level you've got low compassion, low conscience. It was used by Hitler in the concentration camps, and you had people who were saying in the concentration camps that they became selfish and that they came trying to save themselves, which is the same process which goes in the rat race. We've got everybody who's chasing money, chasing bills. We've got the financial deadlines. So not losing your house is always that scare that keeps everybody. I just like to think that we got over most of the negative, the satanic stuff. I like to think that we're over the worst because this has been going on for centuries now, and we haven't actually accepted satanic control of public services, and so they're the ones that have been that system has failed because it became saturated so that everyone was affected, and now we're saying we don't accept that system whereby there's genocide and Satanism and satanic rituals going on in our schools and churches, and pharmaceutical industry is actually attacking us. It's meant to be funded by public money, and so all public services are being hijacked by satanic forces, and we don't accept that, and we're saying we're taking everything down, and we're going to build, you do about U-turn, ask public servants to do a U-turn so that instead of serving those people behind the scenes, they're serving us.
And that's all they've got to do. Each one of them's got to turn around, and we're going to be in charge rather than being at the receiving end of satanic rituals, which is what public service had become, but now it isn't.
Do you mind if I jump in? We've only got 30 seconds left. I just wanted to plug tomorrow's show, Radio Free Canada, 11 p.m. GMT, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. It's ebsradio.com/Radio Free Canada, Kanata. And I want to thank everyone's participation. And again, we'll just carry it on.
Yeah, we've actually got up to an hour afterwards on record, but I realise you've got to go.
It's funny, I keep hearing a voice in my ear, 30 seconds, so maybe I'm...
No, that's Blog Talk giving me...
I see, okay. Then I'm sorry, Neil, I didn't mean to cut you off. I thought we were about to go off the air. Sorry about that.
No, it's an indication that we're off live, but we're still on...
I see, okay.
Think, yeah.
Anyway, but thank you all. I will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
An honour.
Andy and Kevin, Annett, Nilu and Julian, and all the listeners out there. And this is a learning process, and you've got to learn how to actually handle these criminals, these gangsters.
That's right.
And it's got to be done in the court.
I look forward to talking to you all very soon about all this.
Be well, brother.
Absolutely. I'm going to join your show tomorrow.
Looking forward to meeting you, Kevin.
Yes, you sure will when I'm coming there later in the summer.
John Deegan as well. I actually saved him from the police in Staines.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Small world. Well, good. We'll talk more about all this.